Hi, my name is Alondra Bobadilla. I am Boston's first ever Youth Poet Laureate. I'm 17 and I am a senior at Fenway High School. So this poem is entitled Highest Praises, and it's dedicated to Boston youth as well as Boston community members and community leaders who every single day are striving to make our city a better place. This poem highlights some of the different struggles and difficulties that we have within our community, some of the discrepancies that I've heard other Bostonians talk about, but it's also highlighting the endurance and the perseverance of our people. I hope that you guys enjoy. Highest praises. What does it feel like to be the lungs of the third most gentrified city in the land of the free? The gentle rise and fall in the body of America's womb, this hallmark card city. Best universities that you never see Boston youth attend, white as my teeth, with so much vibrancy bursting underneath, it's pitiful. The lack of true diversity, and I mean in our institutions. Before you pull into Jackson, I think, I don't remember, feels like forever, it seems. If you take a peek outside, you see the graffiti sign, we have nothing left to lose but our chains. I stay wondering who tagged that line. I searched it up and learned the lineage of the saying, and to this day, I'll be praying the train will screech to a stop and let me take a pic. Or if I can jump off real quick and have someone snap a flick of me in front of it, this is my historical Boston, my tourist attraction, better than Beacon, because I feel like those people were my heroes. Why? Because they probably looked more like me, lived like me. And I'm tired of making heroes of people that were the reason for my ancestral demise. And old white men buried in the commons is not my idea of a field trip worth taking anymore. No disrespect. I wonder to what hands that onyx-colored spray paint can belonged. To what opaque soul remains in chains by pain since the first death they ever saw and completely crumbled to ashy ruins by the third. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe it wasn't that deep, but isn't it always that deep when young bodies are never worthy enough to be named on TV so these older people can have another reason to seethe and say these black and brown young men are nothing but thugs, these slugs adding insult to injury with their snake eyes? Say their names. Say their names and write them on their favorite swing from when they were a child. Or hangout spot, or corner store down the block, somewhere only a loved one would know to go to find a piece of them tucked gently in the normal, like finding money in your washed clothes, hidden monuments for these babies I never knew but always loved. Promising on dead dogs, bloody tears dropping on grieved out gravestones. This pain is hereditary, and this fury is too. Deep rooted in the veins like the drugs their parents passed to their systems. These adrenaline addicts I laugh with who are so proud of the city that they claim to hate enough to say drastic stuff like NY is a little Boston, and I like that. Because Lord knows we deserve to claim something that feels real enough even if the pride in our hands is like sand. The confidence boost is comforting. I know people that know people I went to kindergarten with. Boston is the sheerest definition of full circle, both in the awkward and the scary. Young men that are social media famous right now, labeled as different because they made Vans look cool and their drip is contagious. I knew them when they were 5 and they were first sexualized by some middle school girls on the playground. Older women I admire because they are unsung heroes at every street corner who happen to be the kin to friends of mine I lost along the way to bad decisions. And as they speak, telling me that they haven't given up on so-and-so, saying these things as I watch flashbacks of my old friends as children click through their eyes, intimate homemade movies that they make me a part of, and I fight back the urge to scream and cry because they didn't deserve to hold people that they love in their arms and watch them bleed out and close their eyes for the last time for no reason. Youth that say I'm a man at 16, sleeping on benches on the side of the streets in Dudley, selling weed since 13. Young women that visit graves and then visit poles and walls in Jackson and Mission where their boyfriends were murdered and can't even focus in school. Youth that write the name of their mixtapes and Snapchats on bus seats hoping to be noticed. Youth that got handcuffed in school because of dyslexia and threw a tantrum out of frustration. Youth that never had a gym or hand soap in the bathroom. Youth expected to get it all done and still be told it ain't enough. Youth that were abandoned by immigrant parents and high school is like a wish come true. Youth that ask me if I'd cry if they die on the streets. And I don't even know them like that. Searching desperately for love anywhere, even in a stranger. And they only get this love when they sleep, and their subconscious reminds them what they lack and they lust because that's all that they know. Anger and sex, trauma, these people with big minds and even bigger hearts that limit themselves and pretend to be so cold-hearted because nobody trusts each other enough. But we still rise and fall. We still breathe even though these lungs are full of smoke. We keep this city pumping because if it wasn't for my old classmate sitting in those community town hall meetings making our voices heard, because if it wasn't for small organizations that get shut down in 10 years or so because of lack of funding, the only pop-up stores I'll always show out for, because if it wasn't for youth that were praised for 10 seconds and then never protected, because if it wasn't for the teachers that stayed after school for hours crying real love and snuck kids that haven't eaten in 3 days food, because if it wasn't for my friends who sat in Jackson with me and held me as I had my anxiety attacks, if it wasn't for them, a hell of a lot more of us would be dead. But we shouldn't need a few good Samaritans to solve our bigger problems, but that's another poem for another time. Every so often you see us linked together like Cubans, the best ice America's ever seen, hanging from the mother city's neck. We preach on the same porches we used to get our hair beaded. We work in the institutions they told us were against us and change their rules. We lift signs of protest in the same beacon they took us to at 9 and 10 to sightsee. We love on this open flesh and stitch them up to scars, story by story, hood by hood. My homage to Boston youth, soldiers that cradle these cities' wounds.